All right. Well, I'm going to go into what we were going to talk about.
What were we going to talk about, Callie?
Well, last week we talked about...
Other than curing your illness, what else were we going to talk about?
How to make me sweat this out, yeah. Last week we talked about the Cornett alleged attempted rape, and we heard from...
Alleged? You mean we had the actual little girl that he did this to, but you still want to use the phrase alleged?
Well, you know, do you have any proof, Kenny?
You heard her interview, Callie. You cried. You cried when you heard that entire interview. You confessed that to me.
Well, you weren't.
And you want to tell me that you didn't believe what that little girl had to say? I think you cried because it brought back memories of you when you were 13 or 14 years old, and Cornett hitting on you in a parking lot of the Louisville Gardens or somewhere.
No,
that's what I think happened.
She's pretty convincing.
I do my own little investigative work. Call me the Dan Rather of the wrestling world. I can poke and prod with the best of them.
Well,
cried for a reason, Callie.
So we heard from her, one of the victims, but not a lot was said about the other girl, okay? This past week...
now on this week's show on Who's Slamming Who, I cleared that up. Because we tried to cover it, and just due to time constraints, we couldn't get into the other little girl, Irma.
Right.
It was Selma and Irma, and poor little Irma, what has happened to her, and apparently, I know you said you had some clips. Do you have a clip?
Yes, I
need to go ahead and cover it here?
I have a clip that I was going to go ahead and play there.
Well, go right ahead. Go ahead and play the clip, and if there's anything beyond that needs to be covered, I'll cover it, but go right ahead.
Okay. Let's go to that clip. Here's poor little Irma.
Poor little thing.
But that poor little Irma, her friend who was in the back seat with her with Jimmy Cornette, is now in a mental institution, an insane asylum. Through years and years of people not believing her and not believing what she had to say, and her waking up in the middle of the night and seeing Jimmy Cornette in her room. No, Jimmy wasn't in her room. I'm not saying that. But that's what she would see. She said she would wake up and she would see Jimmy in her room with a Sprite can and little pills, trying to get her to drink them. That is what he did to her mind. That is how screwed up this poor little girl became. And they had to actually put her in an insane asylum. Poor little Irma. I'm not going to divulge her last name. I'm not even going to mention where she lives. But Irma knows who she is, and I don't know if she's got access to this show or not. Probably not. I don't think they let them have the internet where she's at right now. But she's got friends out there that know who she is. And I think more and more of her friends are starting to realize, yep, that poor little girl was telling the truth. Poor little Selma was telling the truth.
Okay, Kenny.
Sounds pretty convincing to me.
Well,
sounds pretty. I don't doubt my own words. I know that. I don't think you doubt my own words.
Now,
I wouldn't be on this radio show with you if you thought I was lying to you. If you thought I was fabricating, you wouldn't have me on this radio show, Callie.
Well, you know, we're just trying to get down to the truth and see if there's any proof to this.
Well, you noticed who has agreed to come on your show unscreened, unedited, unprepared. You call me at like 5 minutes till 1. Kenny, you still going to do the show with us? Yes, Callie, I will. I noticed that Jimmy Cornette hadn't volunteered any services around here. He hadn't stepped up to rebuke anything I've had to say.
Well,
he goes unprotected on the Who's Slamming Who show with Tommy Fierro, to where I go on all by myself. Total monologue, just like Jay Leno does it.
This is true.
And tell the people what's going on in the world. And Jimmy comes on protected with Tommy Fierro because if there's anything he don't want to ask, anything he don't want to answer, he puts it off on the host and owner of that show, Tommy Fierro. To where me, on the other hand, I come on totally unscripted, totally unedited, totally uncoached as to what I'm going to say or do. I speak the truth, and if that ain't good enough for you, then
okay.
Be gone.
Well, I tell you what.
Be gone with you.
We've had a lot of feedback from the listeners about what's going on, and some believe...
That's what you were telling me.
Some believe that your story, you know, some think it's full of crap. So...
What?
Let me...
You mean to tell me there's one person on this planet Earth that heard my show? Not necessarily mine or your show, but you mean to tell me they logged on to whoslammingwho.com.
Yes, they did.
Heard that little girl talk and dare rebuke her story.
Well, would you like to hear
me, a paragon of sartorial pulchritude, a man who does nothing to speak the truth, never told a lie in my life. I wouldn't know how to lie if you asked me to. And doubt my word.
Well, they got some questions.
Well, let's hear those questions. I'm dying to hear them.
Okay. Now, this one comes from TJ from Seattle, okay?
All the way
All the way
across
from
country.
Seattle.
It's raining there right now. Miserable people live in Seattle.
TJ wants to know, how can you be sure that girl you interviewed isn't making false accusations to try and get a big payday?
Big payday, huh?
Uh-huh.
That little girl emailed me on MySpace when she saw all the young little girls who were my friends on MySpace. She realized that I was a connector of the young people. It was said on OVW television not long ago that Kenny Bolin has his finger in the youth of America. I connect with those people, Callie. I connect with the young girls across the world. And when she told the story to me, it's like a good private investigator. Enough pieces of the puzzle fit, then you have to realize that the little girl was telling the truth. And when she talked about being at television about 5 years ago, which Jimmy was still here, she tried to get an autograph from him. Of course, Jimmy's always going to hawk that autograph into something that's going to benefit him, a ride to an airport, which he always did on Wednesday nights after TV, because normally he had somewhere else to go or somewhere he had to be, and the Sprite can. You can't deny it. That's inside information right there.
Yeah.
You have to know Jimmy and know him well and be with him in his private situation to know that he's always got a Sprite can with him.
Right.
And the average fan doesn't know that. The average Joe doesn't know that. They have no clue what you're talking about when you mention the Sprite can and the pills.
I saw somebody put
I
it.
knew. I've known Jimmy since 1974. We've traveled up and down the roads together. We have traveled everywhere from Louisville to Lansing, from Memphis to Manhattan. I mean, we've done it all. And I know his patterns, and I know the way he is, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, 100% documented, that girl is telling the truth.
So do you consider yourself anything like Cornette?
Am I anything like Cornette?
Uh-huh.
He tries to fondle and play with and hurt these little girls,
Yeah,
and mess them up mentally. I put my arm around them and cuddle them and hold them and let them tell me their stories and counsel them and guide them and answer any questions that they have and be a father figure to them. How dare, Callie, you know me, how dare you compare me to the likes of the Jimmy
I
Cornette?
didn't compare you. I asked
to
you.
knock off some teenage tail. Let's just say what it is.
I was just
Cornette trying to get a
asking.
piece of teenage tail, and me to set these young girls on my lap and hold them and caress them and tell them how beautiful they are and that they could be a diva one day in OVW or the WWE and to hug them and to love them and to tell them how special they are. And you want to compare what Cornette does to what I do?
No, I'm
Come
just
on,
asking. I was just asking, do you think you're anything like him?
Well, of course I'm not anything like him. You know better than that. I'm ashamed that that question would come out of your mouth. I'm only disappointed I didn't know you when you were 14. You might be a better female today if you had us. Can you imagine how much more confidence and how powerful you'd be if you had me telling you how great you were and how beautiful you were and to know that you could come and sit on Uncle Kenny's lap and tell me your stories and your deepest, darkest thoughts, that I would have been there for you? Can you imagine how great that would have been for you? What a benefit I would have been. But no, I didn't know you back then, but you got to admit, Callie, I'm good for you now, ain't I, baby?
Yes, you sure are, Kenny. You sure are.
You better believe it.
Okay.
I'm always there for you, Callie.
Jesse from Texas.
And if you need to sweat, I'm here for you, too.
I need to sweat this fever out right now.
You ain't no 14-year-old girl, Callie. You're all woman, and I think your listeners know that.